Today I'm showing you what comes in the box when you buy the Silhouette Cameo 4 Pro, what I decided to buy to use as a stand, and some other information about the machine. Hello, this is Megan with Little Gray Squirrel. Welcome to my craft room. So I wasn't planning on buying the Cameo 4 Pro when it was first announced. It was supposed to be able to cut up to 20 inches wide, and while that's nice, it wasn't that much of an upgrade from the Cameo 4, the 12-inch one, to justify the price of a new machine. And you'll most likely have to cut down any type of material that you use in the 20-inch machine. But as soon as I found out that it was 24 inches, I bought it. This machine has the largest cutting surface of any Silhouette craft cutter, or any craft cutter at all for that matter. There are larger plotters, but to be able to cut the variety of materials that the Silhouette can, this big, you need the Cameo Pro. But there's a lot to cover, so I'm hoping to make it as short as possible. The Cameo 4 Pro was released on November 2nd, 2020. It has mostly been on pre-order and back order since then. There have been some manufacturing delays with the machines and the blades, but they are being fulfilled. So if you've been wanting to get one, go ahead and place your order and it will come eventually. But while you wait, you can order or build your stand. You can download or update your software. You can start collecting free fonts and designs with commercial use. There's a link in the description below for a list of 30 plus sites where you can go and download legal, free and cheap designs and fonts to use with your Silhouette. You can order some supplies since you'll have a lot more cutting surface. You might want to get more rolls of vinyl and pick out your first project. So I'll put a link in the description to my post, which will have information on where you can get the machine, the stand, the software download, supplies, and my list of where to get the cheap fonts and designs with commercial use. So that'll all be down below. So I have some specs for the shipping carton. If for some reason you need to ship your Cameo Pro in the carton that it ships in, the shipping box is it was a cardboard box that I already took it out of. Then once we get into the Cameo Pro, this box is 39 inches wide, 11 3/4 inches deep, and 9 3/4 inches tall, and it weighs 27 pounds. So I've already packed everything here. This box is empty, so I'll set it aside. So here is the Cameo Pro. The machine itself weighs about 20 pounds, and included in the box, you'll have the machine, you'll have the 24 by 24 inch cutting mat, there's a USB 2.0 cable, your power cable, there is a Type B auto blade, the blue adapter, which is for sketch pens, and there's a blade tool. And this tool, unlike previous tools like this in the past where you could use it to adjust the auto blade, this one actually only removes, helps to remove and tighten the cap of the ratchet blade and the auto blade. And then this prong here is in case you need to remove your USB device from the bottom of the machine, which is actually located on this end down below on the bottom. There's a little screw compartment. You will also get your adjustable roll feeder. This is the mat support and the roll feeder, and they all fit in this little compartment, which is nice. So these two are your roll feeders, this is the end, and this is your mat support. You will also get, with every Silhouette Cameo or any Silhouette machine that you buy, you'll get 100 exclusive cutting designs from Silhouette. They'll appear in your Silhouette library when you plug it in and set up the machine. You'll also get 1 month of the basic Silhouette design store subscription. If you're a first-time user, I used that when I got my first Cameo, so I don't get it anymore. But if this is your first Silhouette machine, then you'll get that. And what that is, essentially, it's a $25 credit to the design store. So because I purchased my machine from Swing Design, I also received these things here. So there's the Club Silhouette 30-day membership, which is also only good the first time you ever use it. This is different than the Silhouette Design Store subscription. You get a 1-month membership to Silhouette U if you choose to enroll in that. There's a Silhouette Cameo 4 beginners class that you can sign up for. And then also when I put the Cameo 4 in my cart on the website, because it was over like a $300 purchase or something, it gave me the option to add 3 free products, and I got to choose from a list. So the ones I chose was the Ultimate Silhouette Guide to Pick Scan, using the Pick Scan mat, which also works in the Cameo Pro. And then I got to choose 2 different colors of the 651 Oracal vinyl. So I got a burgundy and a green. So I'll just save those for later. Once you get the machine out of the box, you need to remove all the packing materials. There'll be tape over the lid and over the cross cutter. There'll be tape and foam inside here. I have a photo that I'll show here in a second of all the pieces that I removed. There'll also be a film over the top and the sides of the Cameo. So the Cameo 4 Pro is basically the same machine as the Cameo 4 and the 4 Plus with a few exceptions. So a few of those differences are it's bigger. So this is going to cut 24 inches. The regular Cameo 4 cuts 12 inches. The Cameo Plus cuts up to 15 inches. It has a separate roll feeder in the Cameo 4. It's actually part of the machine, so that's a little different. And then the rollers. So I can go ahead and lift up the machine here and show you the rollers. On the other Cameos, the roller bar is round and you have to unlock and lock it. So this one, it has this lever here so you can lower it to raise the bar. You can see it went up just a little bit here. And then this is the roller. There's one roller right here and this one always stays in the same place. And then the other one is adjustable based on either the size of the mat you're using or the size of the material that you're going to be cutting without a mat. Here's an up-close look. So this lever on the side, when you lower it, it raises the bar, which allows you to move this roller. And I'm going to zoom in here so you can see the roller here is under this, right in the center of this white piece. So there's multiple markings here to help you line up. You can of course move this anywhere that you want to line up on the edge of your material. And you can see this is the end one. So this would be if you were using the 24-inch mat, you would just slide this over right in the center of this gray bar. And so that this indent lines up with this little arrow. And then make sure that you raise this lever back up to lock the bar in place before you load and start cutting your material. For example, if I wanted to cut one of my pieces of vinyl here without a mat, I would load it to the inside line here, this gray line. And then this is where I would want to have this roller to make sure that it's completely overlapping the edge of the vinyl. I would go ahead and raise this lever to lower the bar and lock it in place. And then these little pieces here are the springs. So on the other Silhouette machines, you can actually see the springs wrapped around the bar. They just help out a little bit more in holding the material down so that the blade is going to cut correctly. So that's how you use the rollers in this machine. It gives a lot more flexibility. It doesn't have a specific place to lock into. If you were using, your 12-inch mat or your 15-inch mat or your 24-inch mat, you would want to have it lined up with these arrows here, but you can pretty much place it anywhere you want. The cutting dimensions with the Cameo Pro, if you're using the mat, you can cut 24 inches by 24 inches. If you're cutting without a mat, you can cut up to 23.6 inches wide, because you have to have room for the rollers, and up to 60 feet long. So there was actually an update in 2020, the version 4.4.247, that allows all of the Silhouette Cameos and the portraits to work with a roll feeder and cut up to 60 feet long. Originally it was 10 feet, but they've increased that distance. So if you have a roll of material that's 60 feet long, you can cut that in any of your Silhouette Cameos or the portrait machines. When I was unboxing the machine, I noticed there was something about the mat that was different than the other mats that I've used. And I at first thought it was a defect, because things happen in manufacturing. But I wanted to point it out because it's actually how it is supposed to be. I asked in a Silhouette group that I'm in, and Ellie Mae of Silhouette Secrets confirmed that this is actually how it's supposed to be. So the Silhouette mat is, it's marked, from this gray over to this gray, from 0 to 24 inches, but the sticky part is actually only on it goes from a 1/2 inch up to 23.5 inches. So I guess since I haven't cut anything yet, when you apply your material, if you were cutting like a 24-inch piece by 24-inch piece of paper, or crepe paper, or whatever it is that you wanted to cut, when you apply it to the whole thing, the rollers will actually roll over the edge, but the blade will actually cut all the way from 0 to 24 inches. In the older machines, if you had the rollers moved, the blade wouldn't cut outside of the rollers, but apparently on this machine it will. So that is just something I wanted to point out that I hadn't seen mentioned before, and it was a little concerning when I first opened the box. Something that I plan to do, because this mat is so big, and that I might not always be cutting materials that cover the whole thing, I'm going to go ahead and cut this blue cover piece in quarters so that I can have the mat protected, because these mats are kind of expensive because they're so big that I want to make sure it keeps as much of it sticky as long as possible. So that's a tip you might want to try out as well. So now I'm going to show you how to set up the roll feeder here. I have in my table, I have these baskets that sit underneath, and so I can put all these things in. And I have a link to this, to a video where I show more about this table and how great it is. So I can just go ahead and put these pieces here that I'm not using away. Just like that. To use these pieces, the side, with the rollers is going to be on the side, and you can see right here there's an indentation where this this piece fits. So you can go ahead and lift it up, and it'll fit right in there. This one goes in the middle, and this one goes on the other end. So here you can also see this indentation goes all the way from here down to here. So this one will sit right there, and this one goes on the end, and then this one is the last piece here. So it goes in this order, and then they can slide depending on what size mat or media you're cutting. This end piece actually has its own little slot right here. Okay, so now this piece here is gonna sit across this little slot and hold these in place, so it's a little more sturdy. So now you can move these around if you're cutting with the mat. And it's gonna support it. When you're cutting stuff this big, when it goes in the machine, if it has an arc on it, like a bow, you'll see that this part here in the middle is higher, and it will cause the blade to not cut at the proper settings because it might have more force up against the blade than you're anticipating. So you want the materials and the mats to be fed in as flat as possible. Depending on the size of material that you're using, this is a 24-inch roll of vinyl that I have. So I'm going to take out the mat support to use the roll feeder, and I will go ahead and put this back in to support it. And then I have my roll of vinyl here, and if I just set this in here, all of this you can see, this might flop around a little bit. I want it to be snug, so you see these two sets of rollers. So this one here has a little wheel that you can unscrew, and then you can adjust it. So if you had this size of vinyl, you want it to be sitting on the wheels, not sitting on the base of the roll feeder. That way it'll actually roll like it's supposed to. So some of the features that the Cameo 4 Pro has, they're the same as the Cameo 4 and the Cameo 4 Plus. They all use the same powerful design software, Silhouette Studio. If you've already purchased a software upgrade, then you may need to go back into your Silhouette account once you update your software and turn it back on, but you don't need to purchase it again. So, and it won't count against your uses. You get 3 different computers that you can use on at the same time. Not machines, just computers. The Cameo 4s cut 3 times faster than the previous Cameos and the portraits. The Cameos 1, 2, and 3 cut at a speed of 1 to 10. The Cameo 4s cut up to speed of 30. The Cameo 4s can cut 3 millimeters thick, which is 118 mils. It has a higher maximum cutting force. So there's the 2 tool holders, the 2 tool carriages. The first one is the same as on the other Cameos, and the Silhouette has 210 grams of downward force. The tool carriage 2 has the 5,000 grams of downward cutting force. And that's the one that's going to hold the specialty tools that are specific to the Cameo 4s. It has an automatic tool detection, so the back of the blades and adapters all have a little metal piece that is going to tell the machine and the software which tools you're using. They have the auto load sensor to help with loading the mat or the media. It connects to your computer using the USB cable or Bluetooth. It has the pop-out cutting to cut materials without backing, like paper, without a mat. And it is compatible with the PicScan mat, as I mentioned earlier. And it has the built-in cross cutter in the back. If you want to use the cross cutter after finishing a cut, you'll have to set it up first in the software. So after you click on the send panel and choose your cut settings, you want to go down to the gear icon or the settings icon in the lower right hand corner, and next to feed options, choose the feed button. So select that, and then when the design is cutting, instead of unloading, it'll feed it to the back of the machine. So if you imagine that this had just cut and has my design here and it fed it out, then you would, using these two levers, it's good to use two hands, go ahead and close that, and that'll put a little bit of pressure across the surface of the vinyl. And then this is your cutter, and you just slide it across, and make sure you go all the way to the end or back to the beginning. You don't want to leave it in the center. Then you cut off your nice straight piece of vinyl, and then make sure you lift up the support here at the end so that your next cut will feed out the back properly. Also note that the cross cutter is a replaceable part. You can order replacements because the blade is a part that will dull over time. You can use this lever here and this one here and remove the cross cutter. So if you for some reason just don't like to use this at all, I suppose you could take it out and leave it out. But if you do need to replace it, that's how you do that. To reinstall the cross cutter, you have these little parts that extend. Make sure they're sitting inside these holes here. And lock it in place. When you go to load the material using the sensor, all you have to do is, once your machine is turned on, they'll have an up arrow and a down arrow here. You just go ahead and tap the up arrow, then place your material into the machine. And as soon as this sensor sees that something has gone over there, it'll turn the wheels on to feed into the machine. So it helps you to be able to use both hands to load large pieces into the machine. It also works just as it used to do, where you can just place the item against the rollers and then push load. So either way. Okay, so after you get your Cameo Pro out of the box and check out the stuff that it came with, it's time to head to the computer, and you're going to register or create an account, update your software, update the firmware, and get your free files. So go to silhouetteamerica.com/setup and log in, or create an account if you don't have one already. Register your new machine by entering the serial number from the back of the machine, which is in this back corner here. There's a barcode and the serial number is right under that, so enter that number. And then you want to grab your power cable, which I put away. Grab my box again. Okay, so you want to get your power cable. There's two pieces to this cable. Connect them together, and then in this end of the machine, you'll plug it in. Don't plug in the USB yet. We'll get to that in a minute. So download the software from Silhouette America and choose the current software and choose the correct one for your computer if you're using a PC or a Mac. I don't recommend doing beta. It can definitely be buggy, and you don't want to be frustrated when you're trying to use your Silhouette. If you have had other Silhouette machines, you want to make sure that you're updated to the current version so that you can update the firmware on the Cameo 4 Pro properly. Once you open your software on your computer, then you can go ahead, power on your machine, then connect the USB, click on the Send tab in the upper right corner of your Silhouette software, and that will open the Send panel. So confirm that your machine, that the Cameo Pro is showing up in the lower left corner of the Silhouette Send panel. If it's not, if you've had other machines, you want to make sure that the Cameo Pro is selected so that you can update the firmware correctly. It will also make sure that you can access the correct tools like the 24-inch mat in the software. So after you plug in your machine, you will receive your free 100 free designs from Silhouette. To see them in Silhouette Studio, just open your library panel and sign in if you haven't already, and the designs should be there. The designs and fonts in Silhouette Store are the only things that you should put in your library. If you have any designs that you create yourself, if you have any fonts or designs or graphics that you get from any of the other places online, you want to store those on your hard drive, on your computer. You can use an external hard drive, cloud storage, a thumb drive, but don't put them in your studio library, because if anything happens to your software, they could go away and Silhouette will guarantee that you can get your library back from the stuff you've gotten from the design store, but not your personal files. So don't store those in there. To update your firmware, that's the firmware that's in the actual machine itself. So you go to silhouetteamerica.com/firmware. You're going to select click for instructions under the Cameo 4, and it just looks like the 12-inch Cameo 4. It's not necessarily Cameo Pro, but it's the same model. And then either for PC or Mac, and then follow the instructions. You'll need to use the USB cable for this step when instructed. So the blades that you can use with the Cameo 4 Pro. In this video, I'm going to briefly go over the tools that you can use in the Cameo 4. I'll have to do another video with all, or at least more, of the blades and tools that are available, just because there's so many. So this Cameo Pro came with the Type B auto blade. It has the number 1 on it here. The tools and adapters for any of the Cameo 4 models have either a 1 or a 2 on the front of them to let you know if it goes in the 1 or the 2 tool carriage. They're not interchangeable. When the machine is off, you can move the carriage around if you need to. You don't ever want to do it when the machine is plugged in or powered on. So to load the auto blade into your machine, you make sure that this clip is pulled out, and then on the very top here, if it's closed, there's a blue dot. If it's open, it's white. Okay, so go ahead and I put one finger just a little bit under the carriage, insert the blade in and push it, make sure it's pushed all the way down and flush against the carriage, and then go ahead and lock it in place, and you'll see the full blue dot, and this means it's loaded and ready to go. If it's not locked in all the way or not pushed down all the way, it won't be able to set the blade depth correctly, and you'll cut through your material, or it won't cut enough. So make sure that your blade is properly loaded. The same goes for loading the other tools. When you use the adapter, you want to make sure that the item that you're using is inserted all the way in. Usually there's like a ridge or something. So make sure it's in the adapter properly, and then make sure the adapter is loaded properly into the tool holder. So the tools for the Cameo 4 models that are sold separately are the rotary blade, the 3mm craft blade, and the punch tool. So the rotary blade you use to cut fabric, felt, crepe paper without a stabilizer. And this blade is not adjustable, so it just has the one setting. You just put it in the machine, and the software will determine the force depending on what you're trying to cut. The 3mm craft blade is for cutting thick materials that need more of a slicing action. You'll use multiple passes and sometimes build up force as you make passes to cut through the products like foam, basswood, veneer, and marine vinyl. That blade is adjustable, and then you'll want to set your blade depth manually, and then you'll set the force in the machine in the software. Then finally is the punch tool, which also does not adjust. It's just a little needle-like blade that is used when cutting vinyl and heat transfer vinyl. You'll turn on a setting in the software to punch a mark in the pieces that you want to weed out of your design to help you see what needs to be weeded easier. If you need a backup blade, especially now, I highly recommend getting a ratchet blade. They're more readily accessible, and you will want to make sure that you get the black tool adapter to use with the ratchet blade. You can use either the blue or the black ratchet blade in the Tool 1 carrier. And then you also want to note that the auto blade Type A, which was used in the Cameo 3 and the Portrait 2, is not compatible with any of the Cameo 4 models. The blade requires a different motion for setting that the Cameo 4s don't do. It also won't fit in either the tool holders or with any of the adapters. So you have your machine unboxed, you have your software set up. It's time to pick your first project. Anytime you're using a different machine, a different tool or blade or a different material, you always want to do a test cut. And I'll make another video on this also, because it's so important. Just don't waste your material. Do a test cut, figure out the right cut settings. I actually have a form that I created. It's in my resource library if you want to grab that. It's blank, and it has just markings across the top of like what blade, what material, your speed, force, that kind of stuff. And every time I try a new material, I write down the settings, and then I have it to remember for next time. I rarely go by what the preset settings in the software are, just because it can be different for different blades and different machines. So just don't waste your material. So thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and I hope I answered any questions that you might have about the Cameo Pro. Let me know in the comments below if you already ordered your machine, if you've already received your machine, and what your thoughts are. And then also, if you have any questions about any of the Silhouette Cameos or the software, put that down below too, and I'll try to get those answered for you.